rain tonight. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the land we're here this evening and pay my respects to elders past, present, emerging, and those who may be with us and maybe joining us online as well later on. My name is Kerri Chard. I have a background in psychology and have been working with children for almost 30 years. I've also been parenting children for almost 30 years. I have a couple of disclaimers. I am a parent and I'm trained in 4 different parenting programs. There are days that I don't know what the hell I'm doing and I lose it regularly. There is no such thing as a perfect parent, and if anyone thinks that they're a perfect parent, come and see me after, because I've never seen one in all my years. I have fails every day, and in fact I've got a little sign which I'll dig out in a second. I don't subscribe to guilt, because when we know better we can do better, and hopefully tonight I'll be able to give you guys some tips and tricks on wrangling your kiddos. I do like to start my training with really low expectations though, so I just want to get a little whip around the room. If anyone has any expectations this evening, let me know what they are and I'll tell you if you're going to get them or not. Anyone? No expectations? Beautiful. You're my perfect audience. I love it. I love it. So I've been asked to come and talk to you guys about how to bridge what's happening at home and what's happening at school for wellbeing, emotional and social-emotional support for your kiddos. The fact that you guys are here, that you're interested, especially on an evening, although I do know that the wine and beer has probably brought me here, not me, but I'll try and make it entertaining. But the fact that you guys are here is amazing, and it's really fantastic for your school to be putting on something like this, because I did work in education for a number of years and consulted to 360 odd schools around behaviour and complexity for children, and I do know that when there is a good relationship and partnership between parents and schools, kids do really, really well, no matter what end of the spectrum they are on behaviour. So it's great that your school is actually doing this. I'm going to give you, these are our learning outcomes. These are our learning outcomes. You can rate me at the end and tell me whether I'm hitting it, but I'm going to give you guys a bit of a framework for how to understand behaviour, first and foremost. Most people come to me to come and sort out the kid and fix the behaviour. I'm going to give you a little tip. It's not usually the child, it's the adult. It's you. You know that Katy Perry song? Hi, it's me, I'm the problem. You know that one? So I'm going to give you a bit of a framework to understand when we're looking at behaviour for kids. We're going to look at how predictability in particular really helps shape behaviour, and that positive behaviour that we really like in our homes, that keeps us calm as well. I'm going to give you some tips on how to create calm and consistent routines that are in home that mirror what's happening at school, using the frameworks that your school uses. So there's consistency in language and approaches for your kids. What that means is that kids don't need to interpret their different worlds. So when there's consistency across school and home, kids really do thrive in all the areas. We're also going to talk a lot about regulation. How old are your kiddos? How old is your kiddo? 5? Awesome, amazing. How old are yours? 5? 6? 7? Got an 8? Have I got a 9? 9. How old is yours? 10? 11. Great.
12.
Okay, all right, so all the ages. Great, awesome. How good are little people? They're so fun. Teenagers are my favourite, though, I won't lie. We're also going to end on how to enhance the communication and some tips and tricks on how do you build that partnership with the school to get ahead of things. And it really is an intervention. There's some really easy things that we can do as parents to get ahead of things so that our kids are kind of are calm and consistent across both parts of their world. How's that sound? Yep. Okay. All right. This is going to work. I'm going to have to be manual. Now, before I start, I do want to. I just need a responsible adult. Is there one here?
I can't see any.
Karen just made eye contact with me. So, and your job as a responsible adult is just keep me on time. And so just give me a 15-minute warning. We are going to have some questions at the end. I did get some questions beforehand, but if anyone has any other questions, we'll have a little bit of Q&A at the end. We are going to be doing some role playing as well, so get excited. Oh, we're not. I just got to get you guys anxious. this is really what we're going to be talking about tonight. So we've got your kiddo at up the top there. We've got, and what we want really for our kids, all of us, I know every parent that I've ever met, they want their child to be the best, they want their child to do well, they want their child to be happy, they want their kids learning and having that sense of belonging. But it's tricky, childhood is tricky, it's harder. I know from my oldest is 27 and my youngest is 12, and it's different just in parenting across those ages. It's really different. So I would hate to be a kiddo in this day and age. As parents, we really want to help with that connection, that predictability, that sense of safety, and we're going to talk about what that means for kids. And your schools are here to provide that structure and that environment for where kids can really learn and thrive. In your school, you guys, and most schools actually have these. Not every school has the Berry Street Education model. I've worked with the Berry Street Education team and they're incredible. They're from Victoria, and it's a pedagogical framework really on how to support children based on a number of different domains, like looking at regulation, growth mindset, accountability. We love accountability in our children and our husbands. Sorry, I'm really sexist. I have three sons, one husband, so incredibly sexist. Sorry, men, that's going to be watching. Restorative practices also support our children in how to learn through conflict. I know lots of adults who could still do with a lot of learning around restorative practices. I know I can some days. And positive behaviour for learning is another framework that is used within your school, and it's actually used in pretty much most schools that I've ever come across. And that is another framework that supports learning and explicit teaching in particular. So often when we're thinking about behaviour, and this sort of comes back to that curiosity, is this a skill deficit? Is it something that I can explicitly teach my child? And often it is. And I'll give you some quick and dirty tricks on how to teach your children some behaviours without you sort of stepping into dysregulation yourself. Who does that? I do it really well. I'm like a master at it. I match my kids' dysregulation on the regular. Regulation is something that it's like a muscle, and some days I nail it, and then other days I'm really not very good at it, I'll be honest with you. I know all the theory, I know where I'm at, but I'm getting better at recognising it early. So I'm going to give you my tips, and these are all backed by science, by the way, on how do we catch that, and how do we keep ourselves calm, because when we're calm, and I'm sure you guys have this experience, when we're calm and regulated, we get much better outcomes for our kids. The days fly, and we'll talk a bit more about that. As I said, when our parents, schools and children all work together in partnership, using the same language, expectations, children, they feel safe. And when kids feel safe, they do well, they feel understood, and most importantly, they're ready to learn. And that is language that is embedded within the Berry Street Education model, is this language of ready to learn. And I really like it because I use that a lot with children in getting them ready for school. It's often used in schools. Are you ready to learn? What do you need to be ready to learn? We as parents can also do that with our kids to help them start their day successfully and have a good day at school. So I want to just talk about behaviour for a second. So behaviour really is a form of communication. And for those who are into tattoos, I want you to tattoo some of this on your body. Otherwise, seal it into your brain. That most often behaviour or misbehaviour, behaviour that we don't want to see, is usually an expression of an unmet need. So our job as adults is to help our kids and be a bit of a detective, invite that curiosity, and look at the need underneath the behaviour, rather than the behaviour. So often we respond to the behaviour, but if we start focusing, and this is the bit that I want you, if you're into tattoos, this is what I want you to tattoo on your body, is we're not interested in the behaviour, we're interested in the need. And this really is the secret of wrangling undesirable behaviour, if I'm honest. There's lots of things that sit underneath that. If in doubt, go with connection. Often children are seeking connection. Sometimes we might call that attention. I prefer to use connection or attachment because that's usually what a child is seeking. And when a child is seeking attention, I don't really like using that word, but if they're seeking connection, it's usually because they feel wobbly. because something's going on for them. But this is really what we're going to be focusing on, is what is the need, what is the driving need for this behaviour that I don't want to see anymore. Does that make sense? Okay. So, I'm going to give you some mental models are kind of templates that we have that really often come from our own background. And I'll give you some examples. I'm a kid of the 70s, so my mental model is going to sit over here. I grew up with parents, and this is just how parenting was. I grew up with parents where children are seen and not heard. You do as I say, not as I do. I got belted within an inch of my life, the thong, everything, whatever my parents could find. So this is where this mental model sits. And my parents did the best they could with the information that they had, but we know better now. We know that all of the parenting of the 70s is not how we should be parenting kids. It causes a lot of trauma and lots of therapy. Hey?
You said that right.
I've had a lot of therapy. Plus, why do you think I went into psychology? I do twitch a lot. We just know that there's better ways to get the best out of our kids. So when we're talking about mental models, and so if you had a childhood similar to me, or if you use language such as, or if you sort of catch yourself thinking they're refusing, they're manipulative, if you're using any of that kind of language, check yourself, because you're probably sitting in this mental model here. So this mental model is the willful disobedience model, right? And this kid could if they would, right? This kid is basically waking up, and if you've had this thought, that's okay, I've had this thought too. They've woken up today to ruin my life. Who's had that thought? Okay. So also, you might be familiar with how it goes, right? So in this mental model, you step into a power struggle. Now for some kids, particularly if anyone's got a child who's got some neurodivergence, ADHD in particular, they will love this shit, right? They'll be like, power struggle, bring it, right? Enter. So you'll get into the power struggle with your child. No one's winning in a power struggle, right? You probably know this. But your relationship is going to go in a downward spiral, down the toilet, right? No one is having a good time. What do we do as parents though? We enforce more rules. If you don't eat your dinner, you'll go to bed, right? Oh, that sounds like a challenge. Yep, bring it, lady. We then get quite frustrated, right? And what our kid does is they increase their resistance to us. And so what do? I'm going to give you some more rules. That'll fix you, right? Does this sound familiar? Yep, okay, all right. And if this is you, don't worry about it, okay? I'm going to give you another model. We start seeing oppositional behaviours from our kiddo, right? Because the relationship, the connection, is gone down the gurgler. So we just keep on going around and around the circle. But then what happens is we start seeing this oppositional behaviour kind of might seed out of the home. It might seed into the school. It might seed onto the footy field or the netball field. We might start seeing it seed into the sort of friendship groups. No one is really having a good time here. So this is one mental model. If you ever feel like your relationship is going down the toilet and you hear some language like they should, they're refusing, or you're being quite punitive and enforcing more and more rules, take a breath, have a drink, have a lie down. And I want you to just have a think about this one. So behaviour is adaptive, and kids really, they adapt their behaviours to their environments. And when we think about behaviour in this way, we have a lot more compassion for our kids. But we understand that my kiddo could if they would. They would if they could. But right now, in this moment, they can't, right, for whatever reason. This is a much kinder way to look at behaviour. And when we do this, our relationship is an upward spiral, okay? Everyone is having a good time. What we end up with is something called felt safety, and I'm going to give you guys a demonstration of what felt safety is in a second. But felt safety is very different to being safe, right? Felt safety is a body sense, and when kids feel safe, they do the best. So when we're doing that, we can recognise our kiddos' limits, and I'm sure every parent here will know when their kid hasn't had a good day. So when they've walked in the door, you can tell by their body language, by their face, the way they're holding their bag, you know that things aren't okay for them. Or might be when they get up in the morning. And depending on where you're at in your own regulation, if you're feeling compassionate and regulated yourself, you can respond to your child's behaviour and you can meet their need right there and then. We have much less reduced frustration when we sit in this model here. And what we end up doing is we give voice to our child. So we help them understand what's going on. So we're building lots of awareness. We help them calm. We do lots of beautiful co-regulation. When we're creating awareness, we're giving them language around what's happening in their brains, their bodies. We name their feelings for them. And again, I know lots of adults, my husband included, who really struggles with what is a feeling. So we can help our kids, we can do all of this. We help them use their words rather than their behaviours to get their needs met. It feels like a lot of work to begin with, but over time it actually becomes a lot easier, and parenting is a real joy because our relationship is always on the upward spiral. Does that make sense? Yeah. Any questions? So if you ever feel like you're here, check yourself. What else do you need to do? Have a Bex and a lie down, that's right. Have a big sigh, and then pop over here, right? Understand that just right now, your kid may not be able to do what you're asking them to do. Who's had days where they just don't want to do the day? You don't want to get out of bed, you don't want to get up and make another lunchbox, you don't want to put a load of washing, you don't want to go to work, right? We all have those days. Kids have those days too, don't they? And I know, I've been guilty of this, I'm not very compassionate. I'm a busy mum, I work, it's get out the door, you've got to go to school unless you're bleeding from an orifice. I need compassion, right? And I need to understand that today might not be a learning day, right? To send my kid off to school if it's not a great time for them. So I know that some kids really do struggle with school, and that's probably the top end that I usually work with is children in the top end of behaviours, where, so I really hate getting my photo taken.
Oh, no, you won't need it, I promise.
No, I don't mind. But for those children, I actually say don't go to school, right? And you balance that out and you work with the school. So if you've got a kiddo that really does struggle at school and has big behaviours at school and is often sent home from school, they're days where I might say, it's not a learning day for you today, or it might not be a learning day for you right now, but we'll get going there a little bit later. Let's regulate you first, right? But we can absolutely do this before we get our kids out to school, right? I'm going to tell you how. All right, now does anyone have a pathological fear of balloons?
Yes, actually.
Okay, all right. You can step outside.
Oh, I don't have to go that far, it's fine, I just don't want to touch it.
Oh, okay, all right. How about clowns? Anyone? I don't have a clown, but I'm just curious. They usually go hand in hand. All right, I'm just gonna warn you, I'm gonna blow up a balloon in a second, and I'm gonna pop it. So you know what's coming. I'm gonna invite you, if you feel comfortable, I'm gonna invite you to close your eyes. And the only thing I want you to do is to check in to how does your body feel. Just sit there in your body, don't do any cheating, don't breathe, don't do anything to sort of calm yourself or control how you're feeling. I just want you to notice how you're feeling in your body, knowing that I'm going to pop up a balloon, blow a balloon and pop it. And just because we're going to do a little experiment after, and you're going to tell me what you noticed, all right? So this is felt safety, right? Very different to being safe, it's a body experience. So if you feel comfortable, close your eyes. If you want to keep them open, keep them open. If you want to step outside, you're welcome to step outside. It's total choice there. But I'm going to blow the balloon up and then pop it. Always have a screamer. There's always a screamer. And it wasn't even that loud. A lot of jumpers though. How did that feel? Not good? Who liked it? Some people like it, believe it or not. Usually foster carers I find, because they've got like 9, 10 kids, and their body's used to like chaos. But that's okay. This is, all right, what did you notice in your body? And everyone will have a different sensation. What did you notice?
Anticipation, anxiety.
Anticipation, yeah, yep. Scared, yep. What did you notice? What feelings did you notice in your body? Did you notice your heart race, or could you, yeah, okay, you could feel your heart pumping? Yep, yep. Anyone else feel that? How was your breathing?
I was holding my breath.
Yeah, yep, yep. So, did anyone notice that their breathing was really shallow, sort of up here? Yep. Anyone feel tingling in their fingers? Sometimes people feel that. Yep. I'm not gonna lie, I did deliberately squeeze the balloon just to make you a little bit more anxious. That is a lack of felt safety. Now, depending on, and what I just did was I actually knocked your nervous system into a sympathetic state. Okay, I did that deliberately, it was a bit mean. We're going to do it again, but this time we're actually going to calm your nervous system. So, same instruction, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes if you feel comfortable. This time, I want you to do anything that you can, any internal resources that you have, whether that's taking nice big deep belly breaths down into your diaphragm, past your belly button. You can take yourself on a little mind spa, you're on a hammock in Hawiwi. You can do some positive self-talk. You know what it sounds like, it's not that bad, I'm not going to scream. Do whatever you can to kind of try and control the sensations that you just felt in your body. We'll see if it made a difference. You ready? You didn't scream. You jumped though, but you did one, and barely a jump. Was that different? It looked different from here. Was it different? Better or worse? Better? You did some lovely tapping there. So tapping is another lovely way that you can calm your nervous system. But that just tells you the power of a deep breath. And how powerful our mind is when we're feeling anxious. So if any parents have any kiddos that are anxious, teaching your kids how to breathe into their tummy, because when we're anxious we breathe into our chest, and we have a lot of those sensations that you felt in the first time around, but also doing sort of butterfly tapping, just in a nice rhythmic spot like that. You can do rocking, so if you can grab your kiddo and rock back and forth, that can be really soothing for their nervous system. There's lots of things, and kids actually regulate their nervous system naturally. Who's got a kid that's ever done this? Right? It actually feels really good, but when we do that, we're also soothing our nervous system. When kids whine and whinge, that is actually soothing their nervous system. So humming, singing, so they intuitively do it. Sometimes it can be quite annoying for us. Throwing things is another way to calm your nervous system. So what I do with kids is I get kids to actually throw their squishmallows. Who's got 1,000 squishmallows in their home? Yeah, when that craze finished, you still got them. So get your kids to throw their squishmallows. That can help regulate, can get rid of, discharge that energy. But felt safety is something that we all experience. And if you think about how your body felt in that first time before you sort of tried to control it, was it similar to how you feel in conflict? Or maybe if you are in here, if you end up in a power struggle with your kids, is there a similar sensation in your body when you're in conflict, do you think? Yeah. And so that's why when we look at behaviour as a framework and a model, our mental model, our template is this: what we're doing is we're actually increasing felt safety. So over time, we not only give our kids the skills and the words to grow their social emotional well-being, but we actually don't see their behaviour because a lot of their needs are actually, their fundamental needs are being met. Right? It's another reason why this is a far better way to look at behaviour and respond to behaviour. I'm going to just give you a little, we're going to quickly talk about the science of regulation. Any science nerds in the room? No? Minor science nerd, was it? Or, yeah, okay, big one. Okay, excellent. So this is from the science of polyvagal theory, and it's a fairly new science, but really I think if there was one thing that I would like to give to the world, it would be the understanding of regulation. I think if everyone understood the science of regulation, we would have a much better world. So there's three primary principles of polyvagal theory. The first one is this concept of neuroception. So if you think about neuroception, like every single person has like a little antenna, like a Wi-Fi antenna, and it's like our surveillance system. And we pick up, we talk to other nervous systems, and so we pick up cues of safety or cues of danger. And our nervous system is always scanning our environment, thinking, is this safe? Is this person safe? Is this environment safe? Is this relationship safe? Do I feel safe in my body, right? Now, depending on how our own experiences from when we were a baby or even before we were born, right through to adulthood, our nervous system is designed and developed. So no two nervous systems are ever the same. We all have very different experiences. But our neuroception is really kind of listening inside our body, so it's picking up those cues, the anxiety in the chest, maybe the fluttering in the tummy, the sweaty palms. It's picking all of those cues up, and again, always coming back to this question: is this safe? Right? Now, some kids have a neuroception that's a bit wonky, and some adults might do too. So they pick up things that are safe, unsafe, but they're really safe. But we can pick up what happens then is based on our experiences, our nervous system will then send a signal to our brain, and our brain makes up a story of what's going to happen, right? Based on previous experience. So I'll give you an example. If a child who has grown up in a home where maybe mum and dad work long hours, they're tired all the time and they're overwhelmed, and they come home and they're short-tempered, right? That child's nervous system will predictably be able to pick up the cues, the body language, just like we can with our kids. Will pick up those cues, and their neuroception will be really good at picking up those cues and flicking into protection mode, okay? Based on previous experience of what has happened when mum and dad come in the door, tired, overwhelmed, stressed, right? It's usually, it might not be good experiences. On the opposite side, maybe they've got mum and or dad who work long hours, but they regulate themselves and they come in and they're happy and they're smiling and they greet the child, and it's a fun experience. So their nervous system starts to expect that when I see mum and dad tired, it's a positive experience as opposed to a negative. Does that make sense? Right? So that's how important our neuroception is. So that's the first thing that happens is our little Wi-Fi antenna picks up in the environment, between people and inside our body. Is this safe or not? We also have a hierarchy in our nervous system, and this really describes how our nervous system moves through three levels. I'm going to show you how that works, and it's kind of like a ladder, and it really explains why our behaviour can shift like that. So has anyone got a kiddo that they go from 0 to 100 and they're like, what? Where did that come from? And it doesn't feel like there's a pattern. There's always a pattern. It's not a linear pattern. But there is always a pattern, and I'll give you a tip on how to track those patterns. If I don't, it's not in here, but if I don't tell you at the end, remind me. Our hierarchy moves from connection down to protection, and then into shutdown. And I'll show you what they all look like for kids, but also you might also for us as adults. So co-regulation is the other aspect of polyvagal theory, and this is really the presence of a calm, regulated adult. Can be another kid. Has anyone seen some of those social media videos of a very emotionally intelligent sibling who co-regulates a younger sibling? Yep. So you can get co-regulation through another child, but it's rare. Co-regulation is not developmental. It doesn't end. So we all need co-regulation, even as adults. Think about a time when you may have received some devastating news or maybe even good news. You pick up the phone and you ring your bestie, or you ring your husband, or you ring somebody to sort of talk it through. That's co-regulation. So co-regulation is really, it's the foundation of self-regulation, but it never ends. We all need co-regulation at different points. But if we don't have co-regulation as children, we can't self-regulate, right? We can't skip to self-regulation without that foundation of co-regulation. So when our kids do move down the hierarchy, down to protection or shutdown, what they need is co-regulation, right, from an adult. Who's tried to co-regulate their child when they're dysregulated? How's that go for you? Very good, does it? That's when the relationship ends up spiraling, right? All right. So this is the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is our 10th cranial nerve, and it's our biggest nerve in our body, right? And it starts sort of up here behind our ears, and there's millions of little endings here. And this is why our kids, and so has anyone's kid ever said to you, stop yelling at me, but you've just used your firm mother voice? Yeah. That's because when kids are moving into sympathetic, there's danger here. Because the vagus nerve starts here behind our ears, it actually picks up any slight tone, right? And it also will pick up cues on the face. So if anyone's got a good resting bitch face, your kid will misinterpret your moods, I would say, because that most people will. So at the top of our vagus nerve, and this is when we're in ventral vagal, it's called, or I like to call it safe and connected, or social engagement, right? So you'll recognise these days. These are the days that flow, right? You get up, everyone knows what to do, they've had breakfast, there's no spillage on the table, you know, they know where the hat is, you get out the door early, you have good flow even getting into school. And when we're in social engagement, we are calm, we're curious, our kids are playful, they're obedient, right? They do what we want them to do. Everyone's kind of just in flow. For our children, they're internalising, their nervous system is feeling, I'm okay, you're okay, the world is okay, right? It's going to be a good day. This is where we want our kids starting their day. This is how we would like to start our day, right? This is not reality though, because someone will drop the milk, someone can't find their hat or their shoes, someone will lose it, and that's natural, right? So we will always drop in and out of our nervous system. We're always moving up and down. What we want to do is develop flexibility, right? That's the main thing, is developing flexibility to be able to move up and down. As much as we would love to stay here, we never stay here all day, right? It's just not possible. Our nervous system isn't designed that way. When our neuroception picks up that there might be some cues of danger, our body will do exactly what happened when knowing that I was blowing up the balloon and popping. You move into that activated state, and again, it's different for everybody, but our adrenaline increases. We're preparing to either fight or flight, right? And so it's a mobilized, activated state. Now, for some people, they'll just get in here quite quickly, and then they'll just keep on dropping down. They won't hang out here. Their nervous system, it's too overwhelming for them, right? And that's fine. But in this state, this is what the body is saying, I have to protect myself. And then that sends signals to the brain, and then the brain makes up a story about why they have to protect themselves. It may not be right, but that's how we can get that shift in behaviour. For what we might see is we might start seeing back chat, we might start seeing arguing, we might start seeing really undesirable behaviour. We could even just start seeing fidgeting. So for teachers, they might start seeing kids getting a little bit restless. We might see shouting. We might feel quite frustrated, reactive. We're not our best self here, right? Our goal when we notice that this is where our body is to get calm and regulated and bring ourselves back up here. If we can catch it and bring ourselves back up here, this is how we develop that flexibility. You with me, Sophie? Yeah. For some, as I said, some people will go from here, not hang out here very long, and they'll just jump straight down to here. This is our freeze response. And this is really a sense of overwhelm. It's too much for me, so my body can't cope. And this really is what happens when we're stressed, right? You will have what's called a home away from home. So this is your natural stress response. So some people will either be fight or flighters. Some people will be freezers. And these people might feel like just really tired. So under stress, they might just want to just go to bed or lay down on the couch and watch Netflix for the weekend. And that would be your home away from home if that's where you tend to hang out. And that's okay, there's no right or wrong here. The key is to know what is your natural state, what is your home away from home, what does it feel like for you, because it will feel different. And what does it look like for everyone else in your household, including your kids? Because if you can start recognizing, if this is your home away from home, and this is your kids, you're in a bit of trouble because there's a mismatch here, okay? Because you just want to go and lie down in conflict, and your kids want to, let's go. What we want to do though is activate our co-regulation so we can help both ourselves. We want to regulate ourselves to move up here, because when we're here, we can co-regulate our kids no matter where they are. Am I making sense of that? Any questions?
Are you going to explain how to cope?
No, you guys got to work that out. Of course I do.
Hey.
All right. So co-regulation it's a biological imperative. We are all born to co-regulate and connect with another human. Some of us maybe less so than others, but it is connection and co-regulation is a biological imperative. As I said before, it involves two nervous systems that are assessing, are you safe? So as I said, if you've ever tried to co-regulate with your child when you're dysregulated, it's not safe for that child, so you can't actually calm them down. And what usually happens is go to your room, or I'm going to go to my room, right? I need to calm down. As adults and parents in particular, it's our job to lend our calm to our kids. And depending on how our nervous system has been designed and developed, we might need a little bit of extra time to regulate ourselves, and that's okay. But we can model that and use that language for our children. Because co-regulation, as I said, it builds self-regulation over time. Now again, I know lots of adults who have no capacity for self-regulation. They still are stuck over here on co-regulation, right? And ours will wax and wane over time as well. So what we can do, the first thing is we actually have to notice. We have to notice when we are in a state of dysregulation. Who knows that when they're not their best self? Yeah. Does everybody know what their home away from home is? Whether you're more a fight or flighter, or whether you're more a freezer? Does everyone know that? If not, I'm just going to give you a couple of seconds just to have a think. And if you want to just turn to the person next to you, you want to share what you are, or you want to have a think about what are my kids, if you've never thought about that, what's my partner's, if you're a partner at home, other close people around me. If we know this stuff, we can read it, we can anticipate it, we can actually get in and do something about it before it becomes out of control. So just take a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds just to sort of think about what's mine, what's my kiddos, what's other people close to me in my life.
You guys all confess first.
So we were sitting in the balcony. We were sitting in the balcony in a massive so close to the street. One kid ran in, one kid went, and I just sat there as well. So I'm afraid. And now that one kid just went running in the house like, ah shit. The other kid was like, oh yeah. So you can tell how they react. It was so loud. All the car alarms went off. It was so close.
So what you
You're in the
said?
bottom?
And I'm in the balcony watching it.
No.
I'm in the bottom. As a first responder as also, I don't tend to go back.
So is that what we need to do? So if we're unsure, we get chopped down a street light, or our child says, I learned something today. Fight or well, I can see both sometimes, but I guess you.
Is that the reaction?
Do you know what?
I don't know. Sometimes it depends on the situation.
Sometimes it will be, sometimes it will depend on the situation. If you will have one preferred, and if it depends on the situation, it's usually either a fight or a flight. if you're normally an activated, like that's your home away from home, and you find yourself sort of hanging out here, that's often accumulation of stress.
Yeah.
Where the body just goes, I can't do it
I
anymore.
actually can't
Yeah.
fight or flight anymore.
Yeah, I'm done. I actually just, yeah.
And also your hormones.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'll go to bed at 6 o'clock and that's it. I'm like, I reckon that's when I get shit, but I'm normally in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm normally fighting.
Bit fighting.
Yeah.
She's everyone.
I try to start off with it. Really good couple of years ago in the morning. We try to.
Such a nice morning.
Then they wake up and ruin it all.
I know kids wouldn't recommend. These kids are not like the brochure. A really good example, I think, of this is, you know, the mornings where you get up, have the flow, everyone's doing what they need to be doing, you get in the car, you drive down the street, someone cuts you off, and you're like, you're good. Right? Actually, you too. Off you go, right? Because you're here, right? The next day, driving home, something's happened during the day, right? Maybe you've dropped down, and like, don't forget, you will drop in and out throughout the day, right? And this all comes back to your resilience and your flexibility in your nervous system. But driving home, you're more here, and someone cuts you off, and you're like, right? And you lose it, and you rage all the way home, and you rage all night, right? And you're stuck on this person that cut you off at 3 o'clock, right? That's probably one of the best examples I can think of describing nervous system dysregulation, right? So the first thing really is knowing where you. Noticing your body signals, right? When we know and we can bring it into consciousness, because this is all unconscious stuff that happens in our body, but we can bring it into conscious awareness. Pause, take a breath, right? One of my best parenting strategies is saying, wow. I want to say other words, right? Wow. Taking a deep breath, taking myself to my room, right? You stay here, I'm going. So taking a pause, because there's no way that I can respond. I will react, I'll do a really good react, but I need to respond. And in order for me to respond, I need to be regulated. The other thing that we really need to be aware of is our triggers, okay? Now, kids, I don't know why they're designed this way, but they know your triggers. Like, it's like they're born like knowing there's the button, right? And if you are not on your game, and same for teachers, if the teacher comes to school not on their game, the kids will know, and they'll be pushing the trigger button like an elevator button, right? So we need to, in order for us to be Jedi's of calm, we need to know what is my trigger. Okay? Does everyone know what their triggers are? Yeah. Yeah. Family. Yeah. Again, not like the brochure. So if you don't know your triggers and your buttons, have a think about that and get to know what they are. Because usually that's what stirs us up, particularly with our kids. Whose trigger is disrespect? Whose trigger is lying? Whose values are honesty and respect? How's parenting working out for you? Usually our triggers very closely align with our values, right? So if you're not sure about what your triggers are, have a think about what your core values are, because they usually do closely align. We also need to notice where we are, where our kiddo is, and we want to meet our kids where they are. Now, when I say match their energy, I'm not like, you don't want to match their energy as in raging. You want to match their energy. So I'll give you an example. You know when your kids are babies, you know, they're little, and they cry, they're in the other room, they cry, and you're like, oh, that's a hungry cry. And you match the energy, right? You kind of, you're not running, but you do a fast pace, you pick up the baby. We want to match the energy in that way, and then we want to bring our calm, because our kids will then match our energy coming down. Right? Does that make sense? Because when we pick up the crying baby, and we do this, right, and we're calming, we're soothing, we're co-regulating. We want to do that with our kiddos. We don't want to do that with our 12-year-old kiddo. We're going to pick him up and do that. But we can match our energy as in come to them with a good pace, right, using proximity, right, and can you be my child for a moment? I'm just going to hold your hands, nothing scary, you can stay there, right? So I can hold your hands, I'm going to ground you, and we have these little magic receptors on the tops of our hands, right? And if we use our thumbs, right? So I use holding hands with kids, even my teenagers, and I'll rub my fingers, because what that actually does is a little receptor on our skin that's developed when we're babies. You know when you're feeding your babies and you're doing this, and you're doing this to make them sleep? What we're doing is developing those receptors. And our body remembers that, even as adults, right? So doing something like that to calm our child, that's our co-regulation, but we cannot do that while we're dysregulated, okay? We also really need to be mindful of our warmth. And again, if we're dysregulated, our voice isn't going to be soft and soothing. It'll be clipped, it'll be short. We're not giving those signals of safety for our children. So I ask my kids, how do you know when I'm angry? Apparently I give a good stink eye, and my tone becomes really clipped, and my kids scatter, right? So I have to be really mindful. So this is a practice that I've been doing, don't nail it every day, but I'm very mindful that when I'm annoyed, I have to watch my eyes. I have to be very careful that I'm not giving the stink eye, because that will tip off my kids, and in particular, my middle child, it's always the middle child, but in particular my middle kiddo, I will trigger him, and he doesn't mind a good bit of conflict, can I say, so he'll just step in the ring with me. So I have to be very mindful, it's up to me to manage that, okay? So using all of these things, but I need to send those signals of safety to my kiddo's neuroception. I did get you guys to do this reflection, half of this reflection. So you know when you're in those different states, you know you're home away from home, generally. Do you know what helps you when you're activated or dropped down into that dorsal? Do you know what you need? Wine? Have I got another bit on wine?
Second that vote.
Has anyone got any healthier coping mechanisms?
I don't know if it's healthy, but I have a good cry.
That is healthy. Yep,
Yeah.
yep, that's a release. Yep, yep. Sometimes because it can be a pent up. Nothing like a good cry in the cupboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to exercise.
Exercise, yep, that could be a really good one. Moving your body, particularly if you are someone who your home away from home is in the dorsal, so right down below, because it's a shutdown. We actually need to do some kind of movement. So if your kiddo is a dorsal kiddo, and what that looks like is laziness, or a kid that just looks at you or looks spaced out. If that's your kid and you're an activated responder, that will be quite triggering for you, because it'll look like your kid's being disrespectful or ignoring you, but it's an overwhelm and a shutdown, right? So what we want to do is do some movement. So a walk and talk. Hey, let's go for a walk while we talk this out, buddy, right? That's a co-regulation. That's a strategy to kind of get to the bottom of whatever the hell just happened. What else works for you guys? Let's share some strategies.
Have a shower.
Shower, yes.
Go for a swim.
Go for a swim, yes.
Salt water.
Yep, beautiful, beautiful. Cold water is really good. Holding some cold ice is another way that, particularly if we're activated, is a way that can, or if you're ice bather, is a way to regulate our body as well. What
I
else?
take my kids for a walk to the beach if they're really dysregulated.
Yes,
We just
yep.
go for a walk.
Go for a walk. Change of environment. Who's done that when their kids were babies and they wouldn't stop crying, and you went outside and next minute they've just stopped crying? Who's had that experience? It still works for us as adults. It works for our kids when they're bigger. A lot of the things that we do as parents when our kids are really small still work. We just need to adapt it and not carry them outside. But change of environment, bit of nature, breathing. You just said something. What do you use? Singing, yes, singing is great. And as I said, singing, humming, whinging, all of that activates the vagus nerve, and it calms our body, our nervous system down. So singing, listening to music.
We do a dance party.
Have a dance party. Love a dance party.
Humour, like
Humour, yep. So playful engagement is your superpower in disrupting unwanted behaviour. So if you can disrupt a behaviour and correct a behaviour playfully, you're going to keep that connection with your kid stronger. Sometimes that can be hard. Sometimes the humour might be a little bit inappropriate, but you can work on that. Okay, so you guys know what works for you. What I would suggest is draw yourself a little ladder. On those bottom 2 rungs, write down some strategies that work for you, and then on the other side of that, write down some strategies that work for your kiddo. So in the moment, when the shits hit the fan, because then your brain can't sort of activate, what do I need to do? You can have a little plan ready to go, right? Even better, talk to your kids about this. Talk to your kids about what's happening in their body. Hey buddy, I notice that when you get a little bit shouty and a bit handsy with your brother, that's usually a time for us to go and maybe go outside and go for a run, or go to the pool, or go for a walk to the beach, right? Getting ahead of that stuff. We know our kids. We know what's coming, and often it's better for us to pause and then go and do something rather than wait for the storm to come. Right?
Can I just ask then, so then once you've got to that point and then you've got them down to where they need to be,
Then have your wine.
no, but like, so sometimes like there'll be a need to like deal with the behaviour, or like there's a point where there's a learning
Yes,
opportunity.
there is always a need. You always
Then-
must deal with it.
Then
Yes.
that's what,
Yes.
so then it's
Later on.
Yes. Calm down. That's coming.
It's still not okay.
Yeah. No, the repair is fundamental, absolutely. And look, I look at ruptures in relationships with any relationship as an opportunity to strengthen it, right? So when I think about correcting a behaviour, my goals is I want that behaviour to be changed, but I actually want my connection with my kid stronger than before. That's my goal when I'm trying to correct a behaviour. Which is very different to my parents, because it was just like stop the behaviour, right? And I would hate on my parents for a long time afterwards because I didn't feel good within myself, right? But like I said, when we know better, we can do better. So again, equally, whatever you're doing over here, do it for your kiddo, and bonus points if you can help your kids understand. And likewise, when we talk about helping our kids understand what's happening in their brain, I don't know if you guys have done much brain work, but when our kids understand that they've got an amygdala, that's our alarm system, it's very similar to our neuroception, and it's our amygdala that kind of keeps us safe as well, so they kind of work together. But when our kids actually know all of this, they don't internalise, I'm a bad kid, right? They say, oh, my amygdala's going a little bit crazy. I know what my amygdala needs, okay? So when we can give that language and understanding for our kids, they don't grow up needing as much therapy.
You know, business.
All right, I'm going to talk about these are some really simple things, and sometimes, I know when I work with families, even families that are really well structured, sometimes when they're in that conflict cycle and the wheels are falling off in the household, the first thing I do is to come back and let's look at the routine. I know you've got a routine, but are we following the routine? Because when we're all heightened in a dysregulated state, sleep is often not happening. Bedtime is harder to happen. Kids might be a little bit more oppositional around dinner time. I don't want to eat that. I don't want to, and they might want to just like, fine, eat whatever, just to shut you up and put whatever is in your tummy. So looking at the foundations such as sleep, nutrition, hydration. So when we're dehydrated, we lose 10% of our cognition. So there's some kids, well, none of us can really afford that. So making sure that your kids are well hydrated. Is your kid hangry? Always checking, are you hangry? When was the last time you had a drink of water or something to eat, right? I know as busy parents, sometimes we neglect our own really basic needs. So if we need help with our regulation, ask yourself, what do I need right now? Do I need to get up and move my body? Do I need to get up and have a drink? Do I need to go to the toilet? When do I go to the toilet, right? Checking in about yourself, but routines and really help create that predictability for our kids in our home, just as they do in schools. So I know when I worked in education, I was in and out of schools all the time, and I could tell from the minute I walked into a school gate whether a school was well run or not, because you can sense it in your body. You're a teacher, you know that you would know this, wouldn't you? You can feel it, and kids feel it as well. And likewise at home. So if we have good routines, good expectations, and everyone knows what's going on, it doesn't have to be perfect all the time, but if we don't have routines, that creates a lack of safety for our kids, a lack of felt safety for our kids. moving our body, physical well-being. I was working with a parent recently, and we were doing all the things, and her son was 11, and he would wake up in the morning really angry and quite violent. So we sorted out, we thought, okay, he's hangry, and he was hangry. He had some interoception problems, so he couldn't recognise his hunger cues or thirst cues, so his mum had to externally regulate and feed, you know, like an infant. So we sorted that out, but he would still do it. And I said to her one day, how much sleep is he getting? And she said, well, he's in bed for like 11 hours. So she had good routines, good structure. And I said, is he a good, like a restless sleeper? She's a pretty light sleeper. So I got her to get an Apple Watch on Facebook Marketplace for like $50. That kid spent less than 28 minutes over a week in deep and REM sleep a night. So he was in bed, but he was not sleeping well, right? So sometimes we have to be a detective, we have to be a little bit curious. So this is, but we don't forget these kind of things. Now, so routines.
What did you do then? Like, what was the...
I sent her to the pediatrician.
Oh, okay.
who specialises in sleep.
She delegated to it.
Yeah. I'm just here finding the problems, lady. Look, rituals can be your best friend, particularly around times where it's a difficult time of the day or a difficult transition for your kiddos. And I'll give you an example. Who has coffee in the morning? Who gets up and has a coffee? What do other people do? What's wrong with you? All right, what do you do instead? The people that don't raise their hand, what do you do? Go to the gym? Okay, all right, so that's part of your ritual, right? So we all have little rituals that kind of get us started for the day, whether it's coffee or you might have a rum and coke or whatever, wine, whatever, to start the day. But it helps us center and ground for the day, okay? So we do this naturally as adults. We do this with our kids at bedtime, right? Who's got a bedtime routine with our kids? Reading lots and lots of stories, lots of cuddles, lots of connection, right, to help our kids create that felt safety so they can go to bed. We can create rituals around other times that are peak or difficult times with our children. It might be, we might have a morning ritual as we send our kids off to school. We've got a ritual in our house, it's not so much anymore, but Sunday nights used to be terrible in our house. We had big behaviours, and I worked out with the kids that it was, because it's the end of the weekend, they felt sad. And so we created Sunday, and so only on Sundays, we went into the op shop and got some of those Sunday glasses, and I got a basket and got all Sunday toppings, and only on Sundays they could help themselves and make a Sunday and a mess. And all of a sudden, Sundays became the favourite. Sunday nights became the favourite day of the week because they could have a Sunday. So that's an example of a ritual. So if you've got a kiddo that really struggles with going to school or coming home from school or a particular day, create a ritual around it. I said this before, moving the body. This one is a little known one, but I think we can all do better here as parents and adults, is setting the bar. And this is about us being attuned, so knowing where our kids are at. As I said before, we know when our kids are not having a great day. We can tell by their body language, by their facial expressions, and we can actually set the bar. We can drop the bar and say, how about right now, I'll do your shoelaces, right? For you right now. We don't want to keep the bar low, but when our child feels better and we do that beautiful connection, we can raise the bar back up. But really being attuned to where your child is here and now, it might be a little bit inconvenient or frustrating. Check yourself, regulate, take some breaths. But when we lower the bar, that can really help us get out of a lot of conflict, unnecessary conflict with our kids. All right. So whenever we're connecting, whenever we're correcting, we always want to make sure that we're connected first before we're correcting behaviour, because kids will learn and they'll cooperate much better when they're feeling safe, understood and connected. And I'll give you an adult example. If I'm about to tell my husband that I booked a 2-week holiday with my besties to Bali, I'm not going to tell him when we're not really that connected, right? You can call it manipulation, but this is about connecting, right? It's about connecting to tell him the bad news. He will accept that bad news, that he's on parenting duty for 2 weeks. He'll accept that much better when we are connected, right? So we might go out for lunch or something, and be connected. Same for our kids, right? Exactly the same sort of thing. I've talked about this co-regulation. Kids will use their voice, and I think this might have been one of the questions around back chatting. Does someone have a back chatting question? Yeah. Back chatting is often a way of a child saying, I'm not feeling heard, right? Often it is. I'm going to give you guys some scripts, and I use scripts a lot. Scripts are wonderful, 2 to 3 words. Is anyone prone to lecturing? I'm a lecturer. Yeah, I love hearing the sound of my voice when I'm angry.
And then you think, oh my God, that sounds like my mother.
Yep. I always say to parents, if you hear your mother coming out of your voice, stop, check yourself, go to your room, take some deep breaths, come out and try it again, right? So for us who like to lecture, who like to sound like our mother, using scripts will save your life. And your challenge is 2 to 3 words, right? On repeat. So I think I've got some here for you. Alright, here's some scripts. And this really helps our language as well. So if you do sound like your mother and you hear some of that, the old school sort of parenting, right? Don't you talk to me like that, right? How's that going to go with a nervous system? Who jolted there? That wasn't even my proper mother voice. But if I say, I want to hear you, but calmly, is that going to be that I'm going to get a different response from my kiddos? My favourite is, hey, try that again, buddy. That's it. I do that to so many behaviours, right? And then I wait. For the pesky repeat asking, asked and answered, darling. Asked and answered.
That's enough.
Asked and answered. Asked and answered, right? And that way I can hold my boundary, and eventually your child will just ask them once, eventually, with repetition.
How many years?
What was it?
Asking for a friend.
Well, how many years?
before they stop asking for
27.
people?
27. No, actually not long. Not long. Couple of months. Depends how persistent your kid is, though, to be honest.
I say talk to them.
Look,
I say I don't want to say no to you again.
I'd probably reframe unless it's done playfully. If it's done playfully, absolutely, that could be accepted, quite fun. But and think about it, like what we do to our kids, and this is something that I've had to really check myself as a parent. And I did an experiment. I challenge you all to do the same. Put your phone on record one evening, one afternoon, and leave it. Forget about it, and just go about your business. In a week, go back and listen to it. You will be humbled on how you sound.
That's true.
Only if you're game. Do it with some friends if you can do it as
And
a
then
group.
you hear in the background.
When I did that, so I have one kid, my middle kid, who triggers me the most. He's the most amazing kid. He's all the exciting bits of my husband and I in one human. And he's taught my husband the most about parenting, right? Other kids not so much. And when I did that experiment, every time I spoke to that kid, and he wasn't even annoying me at the time, but my tone was completely different and I felt so bad. That's what my kid had heard. So just that constant annoying. So I have to check myself. And really, I said at the beginning, when we're talking about behaviour and managing our kids' behaviours, it starts with us. And I hate to say that, but it really does. I know, ripped off, should have had that in the brochure. Look, when we're correcting behaviour, there is always an opportunity for us to come back and do that restorative approach. And this is what schools do quite a lot in their PBLs and their restorative practices. And again, we're going to lead with curiosity. What happened here? And who was affected, right? So we can use this framework when we're dealing with sibling disputes, right? Who did this? And what we're doing is we're building empathy with our kids. We're building accountability as well. So we have 2 questions in our house that we are on repeat. How did you contribute to this situation, and what can you do differently next time, right? To build that accountability. So whenever there's going to be a conversation with our kids, and they will come to us to talk to us because they know, yeah, we'll have a conversation, sometimes they'll get in trouble because we can't regulate, but it's building that accountability and that growth and that learning. And that's really what we want to do as parents, isn't it? We want to build we want to create our children to, you know, to be healthy, happy humans. And if you've got sons, you just want to create no more trauma for the next generation, really. Sorry.
Huge step.
Remembering that kids always remember how we make them feel more than what we say, right? So we want to remember that, and often it's important for us to check, how would I receive this, right? Because kids really don't have any autonomy over themselves. They've always got adults being the boss of them, haven't they? Adults are always making decisions for them. At school, there's lots of adults making decisions. At home, adults are always making decisions. I would love it as an adult. Someone please make decisions for me. But for kids, and if you've got kids in that upper primary school, teach them the C word, the compromise, and teach them what a compromise is. A compromise is, you may not get what you want exactly, and I don't get what I want, but you can give your kids permission to compromise, right? So there's going to be some hard no's from me, but I'm going to give you permission. You can ask me, if it's respectful, you can ask me with respect for a compromise, and I'm happy to consider it, right? What we're doing is we're building a really unique skill, a skill that we all need as adults, but we're also, and I say to my kids, get me to yes. If it's a no, I'll say it to teenagers, I'll say to my teenagers, get me to yes. It's feeling like a no right now, but get me to yes. So they've got to go away and get all the information that I need in order to say yes. So that's building that critical thinking. We can start that in those sort of that upper primary as well. So building our kids' capacity to negotiate and compromise.
They know how to negotiate. I don't need to
Is it negotiation though, or is it hostage terrorism?
Yeah, that's right. I said he's going to work for the UN. He'll be asked to negotiate for the UN, I'm sure.
Yeah. So your kiddo's already got well-developed critical thinking skills. Okay, all right. Because I want you to have a think about, and I asked this question before about whose trigger is disrespect, but have a think about how your body feels when you're disrespected. Yeah, you felt it right now. Right? How do you think your kids feel? How do you think their little bodies feel when they're feeling, and maybe they're feeling disrespected?
But then also how you feel when you are respected. It's so much, you know,
It is better, isn't it? Yeah. And again, if we look at that mental model of behaviour through an adaptive lens, and we're not going to nail it all the time, remember, but if we practice that, that will become our children's template as parents, right? And it'll become natural for them. The willful disobedience will not be the norm, right? The norm will actually be adaptive. Because we know through all the interpersonal neurobiological science that we've got around these days that the adaptive responses and the adaptive way to respond to behaviour is the way to respond to behaviour. But it's just that all of our generation is still stuck in the willful disobedience. So it'll take a while to flip it. All right. So remembering that behaviour, and so this is where we're going to talk about that repair. So behaviour is learned and reinforced. So when we ignore behaviour, and again it'll depend on how we were raised ourselves, what our natural parenting style is. So because, and I shared with you, my parents, I was raised in the 70s, so my parents were both authoritarian style, so very, very high structure, not so great on the nurture. So I know better, so I try to parent at a more balanced, high structure, high nurture, and that's what we always want to try and hit, right? There might be moments where we're a little bit more structure or a little bit more nurture, but we want to aim for high structure, high nurture. That's going to give that predictability and felt safety for our kids. But I know that when I'm tired, stressed, overwhelmed, I will lose the nurture and go back to my template. So that's up to me to manage that. It's not up to my kid to manage that. Okay, so again, this is about us developing awareness of our triggers, our values, where did we come from? And remember, we're not going to nail it. We're going to have moments where we feel like we're failing. Get back on the horse and have do a redo. So when behaviour does go off track, we want to try and stay curious. Now remember, where does curiosity live on the ladder? In the green, yeah. So if you can't feel curious, be curious about what's going on in my body. What do I need right now to check and nurture my nervous system so that I can be curious. And then we can look at, is this a skill deficit? How do I teach my child to do this differently? And we might do that through practicing, hey, let's try that again, buddy. Do just a quick redirection. And most behaviour, when we're connected to our kids, can actually be redirected and managed through a quick 3 or 4 words, in all honesty. When we've got that strong connection going. Okay. I think someone had a question around defiance. Defiance really is, and opposition really is rooted in an activated nervous system. If you think about that fight or flight, that's where it's really kind of sits. So again, if we think about the need beneath the behaviour, the root need biologically is in a dysregulated nervous system. So my response to opposition or defiance is to do a pause. I am not getting into the ring with a child that's being oppositional. I will usually match it with, hey, what do you need right now, buddy? Right, I'll lower my voice. I'll use as few words as possible because I know that activated state, they're not going to hear a lot of words either. And I'm going to drop my tone but still be quite calm. And just, I will be refocusing. What do you need right now? Right? And we'll come back to this, but right now, what do you need? What can I help you with? And it might be a walk, it might be whatever, it might be some time in the room, might be going and listening to some music, whatever it is that you've been able to work out with your kiddo. I'm going to share with you, we have these in our home, so this is a regulation plate, right? This is one of my kids. This is every single person in our household has one, and everyone has permission to check the engine of another person at any time. My kids love it because they love checking my husband, or me, right? But what that does is it builds language, it builds awareness that we all have nervous systems in this house, right? There's lots of bodies in here, and everyone has a nervous system. So when I'm in the green, I'm in my safe and connected, right? I'm in flow, everything's backing. This is my dorsal, so this is when I've shut down, I can't really get off the couch. And I use this as a communication tool with my husband. I've got 10%, buddy, for the evening. That means you're 90 right now, okay? And of course, this one here, this is our activated state. So when you've got younger kids, you can, and look, this is a paper plate, literally. So you can do it as a craft. I have teenagers, they use this. So this builds language and awareness. Not just for your kid, but also it builds for your household. You can take it a step further. My kids all know what they need, but you can take it a step further, and underneath each of the colours, you can actually do a reverse and write down what are the things that each person needs when they're in the different states, okay? If you want to, you can give permission for everyone to check, but just get ready to get checked a lot, if you want to. It builds fairness. Kids like checking you. But that's a tool that we have in our house that is very helpful. All right, again, I can't stress this enough. Yes, right, thank you. When we're, before we are correcting, we need to be regulated ourselves. So breathe, how's my tone, how's my voice? If you give a good stink eye, calm that down. If you're in the middle of a meltdown, so if your kids just lost it and then they've melted down, we're not saying a lot, right? Sometimes it's just about discharging that energy, okay? If your kid melts down a lot, then I would have a proactive plan with your kid of when that happens and what they can do safely, right? So I have created for kiddos like a rage cave in their room where you can throw your squishmallows at this target. We've put a target on the wall rather than putting holes in your wall and trashing your room. Or you can go outside and you can do something outside, right? So giving your kids somewhere to go and discharge their anger and their energy. Because some kids will need it, some kids might just collapse, some kids might respond really well to like a calm corner. But if you've got a kiddo that's sort of more in the activated, angry state, work with them and help them to manage that safely. Let them discharge all of that energy. When you're coming back to repair, connect first. Okay, don't ever do a repair straight after you've had a rage attack, because you'll enter into the second one. So this is we're not going to do that because we don't have time, but I think it's on the next page. Here we go. When we repair with our kids, we're letting them know that all relationships will rupture, right? We want to teach our kids that you will have difficulties in every relationship that you have with your boss, your partner, your friend, your sibling, us. But what that means is it's okay to make mistakes, right? The relationship is never up for grabs. Doesn't mean you're a bad kid. Doesn't mean that that you're out of the wheel. But it also, when we can repair with our kids, we can lead the way and show our kids that I can own up to my own mistakes. Now, as a kid in the 70s, it was really hard for me to learn how to say sorry to my children because I had never experienced that, right? So I had to work really hard to do that, I'll be honest. But once you get over that, it's like any skill, once you learn it, it becomes a lot easier. And again, the joy and what happens in your relationship with your child when you can do that is magic. It strengthens your relationship. I'm not going to say you look forward to the ruptures, but that doesn't happen, but it is a lot easier. So when we're using restorative practices at home, who says because I said so? Yeah. Try and frame it differently. And depending on the context, if we had a little bit more time, I'll get you guys to give me some examples. But really we want to check in with our kiddos. What were you feeling at the time? Like what's going on with you? How did you contribute to the situation? You take our 2 lines, they're great. How did you contribute to the situation? What would you do differently next time? Right? So there are some good ways to build that restorative practice, because whose kid likes to just blame everyone else? Right? That's developmental, it's normal, right? But we need to check it, we need to build and guide our children into being able to sort of think about others rather than just themselves. Okay. I put some scripts in here for those who may be like me and find it difficult to say sorry. So just so you know, I lost my temper before, I'm sorry. That's all, a few little words, but very, very powerful. Checking in, right? You can check in. Are you okay after an argument? I'm sorry that happened. And doing a good old redo. You know, geez, that went south. Can we try that again? Can we go redo? I lost my cool. And what you'll find is that your kid will actually start owning up. Oh yeah, I shouldn't be owning up. I'm really sorry. Right? And what are we doing there? What are we doing in that relationship with our kids? Strengthening connection. Modelling. Yeah, we're doing really, really wonderful modelling. We're creating good humans. So my top tip is don't ever try and repair, do the repair until after the storm has passed, right? So let everything sort of settle. Do some playful engagement, and then come back when and you can just talk about something benign, right? Something really silly. What should we have for dinner? Do you want to help me cook in the kitchen? And while you're in the kitchen and you're connected, then you can have those conversations. Don't ever try and repair when you're still a little bit heightened and hurt. To sort of talk about what just happened. Like I said, you'll enter back into the conflict. All right, two more slides. I don't know what I've done to my computer. All right, ready to learn. I saw in the staff room that you guys use, this school uses this language. So ready to learn plans are amazing, and again, it builds that language for kids that are, my brain, my body is ready to learn. You can use this at home. So ready to learn, the routines that your school will have to help your kids recognise what their brains and bodies need. It builds independence, predictability, all the things that we want. We can do it at home by making sure that our kids, we've got all of these predictable things, we're covering the body, some movement. I know with some families I've worked with where kids are really activated in the mornings, we've built into on the way to school. So if you've got super energetic kids, on the way to school, leave 15 minutes early, stop at a park. If you've got sensory kids, stop at a park that has a spinny thing and spin it for about 10 spins. That will regulate their body. So using a lot of this language at home will help bridge what is happening at school in helping kids getting my brain, my body ready to learn. After school, again, we're modelling that language, having a snack, having some quiet time, whether that's tech time or whatever, rest, reset, and then it's homework. I think this might have been a question as well, which I'll address in a second. And then in the evenings, doing some calm activities, getting ready for bed, right? Again, modelling that language. We need to get our brains and bodies ready for bed so you have a good sleep, so tomorrow you're ready to learn, right? Just simple phrases and language that's going to build that consistency for your kids when they get to school. Here are some tips around homeschool partnerships. I said at the beginning, it's super important, and this is where I always see kids thrive, is in that partnership. We don't want constant contact. You don't want that. Your school definitely doesn't want that. But what we can do is give heads up. So if it hasn't been a good day or it hasn't been a good morning, if you've got a kid who they're just not a morning kid, sending an email or a message to the office. We're on our way. We're at a level 10. That might signal to the school. We're not going to send them straight into the class. The school can sort of help co-regulate. You can do your bit, see if they can settle them, and then get them into the classroom. Sharing stress or any changes at home is really helpful for your teachers because it does impact on focus, regulation, relationships at school. Keeping those open lines of communication. Celebrating effort with your kids, not just their results, and this really comes into the very strict mindset, growth mindset principles, that we want to praise effort, not just our achievements. Effort is more important. Making sure that you're attending events, it builds visibility and strengthens the relationships between your school. And as I said, using that same language and predictability. All right. Sorry, I just had to speed it to the end. Now I'm going to talk about the tech. So there was a question about the tech. You guys are a laptop computer. Are you a laptop or iPad school? Yeah. iPad.
No, laptop. Sorry.
Laptop. And this is a common question that I get. In fact, there's two questions I always get when I talk to parents: is lying and technology. I have a technology contract with my kids for every piece of technology that they have, and I've got I've got lots of templates. I design them for unique to the child. You can just write your own, but it's a meeting. If anyone, before you give your child a phone, hopefully in high school, wait as long as you possibly can. They will sign whatever. You can put whatever you like in a phone contract. But I trot that phone contract out regularly, or there's an Xbox contract, and it sets out what are my expectations and what are the child's expectations of me. So what are things that I need to uphold as well? So I can't, so for example, on the Xbox contract, I can't just go and say, get off the Xbox, because I've got to die, Mum, right? I need to give warning, I need to give transition. There is a clause in the Xbox contract that they can offer a compromise and negotiate. I can still say no, but they can ask, right? That gives them a sense of autonomy. Tech is such a difficult thing with our children, and often I say to adults, first and foremost, how are you on tech? I know I find it really difficult to get off tech, so I don't try not to use it. And we've got developed brains. So for our children that don't have developed brains, it's even harder. When you're built into every tech contract is when you get off tech, you have to do some high intensity activity. So when we're doing that, we're keeping the dopamine high. So get those Kmart, they're like gym balls, they're like dice. $5 from Kmart. And they're fitness things like high intensity training. So I use them to get kids off. When kids find it difficult to get off tech, I will use that. So when you get off, we do this together, so it's a connection thing. So the child is happy to get off, maybe not happy, but they will get off. I'll throw the ball, they've got to do 20 burpees, however, mountain climbers, whatever, to keep that dopamine high, and then it tapers off, so you don't get the tantrums. Yeah, because it's the crash as well that kind of nails everybody as well. But I can send Karen some different templates, but I do use I find the tech contract is probably the best tool to use because it sets out the expectations. When the expectations aren't being met, we have a meeting. And usually when we have a meeting, we go out to a coffee shop, they can choose, we have Macca's, and we sit down, we print it out, we go through it, what do we need to change? Remember, this is what you agreed to, here's your signature, right? It's holding that accountability. My teenagers hate having meetings now, so they kind of tend to stick to the tech contract because they don't want to have a meeting with me. But I find that that's probably the best tool that I have, is just having really firm tech contract and expectations there is some negotiation in the development of that, so there's some level of agency with the child. The minute, well, my kids are a little bit older, so they didn't have tech when they were younger. But the minute they got the iPad for school, I remember my oldest son. Well, actually, he didn't get his first phone until he was 16. But he had to, so for his Xbox, he had to read the same amount of hours in order to play his Xbox. So I said, if you want to play for 10 hours, you can play for 10 hours, but you've got to read for 10 hours in the same 24-hour period. He was my firstborn, so he followed that rule. My other two were like, yeah, right, not doing that. So I had to have a different rule for them. But as early as possible, even, I don't think there is, I think if you've got kids under 5, have even a kid-friendly contract, right? Set them up for what these are the expectations. I think when it comes to tech, a lot of it, we've got to check ourselves. How consistent am I on the expectations? Because often, it's I've got stuff to do, or I want to scroll. So I use a lot of timers. When my kids are little, like younger, I time with them. But as they get into high school, the expectation is that they time themselves. So we've been prepping for that for years. So I try and get them to kind of manage that themselves. But thank goodness we don't have tech problems, but we are cavers, according to my children. We're like cavemen, because we have rules, and we try and delay as much as possible. Yeah. It's really difficult to. Yeah. Is there any other questions?
It's a little bit tech related still, but is there a recommended amount of time when it comes to like screen time with iPad or TV? Because I know with my daughter, if she starts watching too much, I see a massive change. But then I understand, like, I don't want to punish her by taking it away. I'm trying to explain that to her and still give a bit. But is there a good balance?
It depends on your child. It depends on the age of your child. It depends on, so neurodiversity also impacts that. So for some kids it actually it actually is a good regulation. Yeah. So it actually is good for them. So you may have different rules, but it's around teaching your child what is their limit. Because ultimately what you want to do is build your own kid's limit, right? Around so they can recognise. So my 15-year-old, for example, he can recognise when he's had too much tech time.
Yeah.
So he can actually regulate and get himself, which is rare for a 15-year-old. We do checks in his contract. We do checks on his phone, and he self-checks. And he had a big fright because in the school holidays, he got a big fright. I think he racked up something like 52 hours of TikTok and something else on Clash, like 60 hours and even he was like, whoa, I need to go to phone rehab. I was like, you do. So we have phone rehab too sometimes, where we have a reset, and to sort of reset the brain and the body, and we do focus on lots of outdoor activity. In every tech contract I have, they have to make sure that they understand that real life connection and movement is conditional to their use of tech. So that's in every single contract. But a part of it is educational to help kids understand, you know, tech's fun. Tech is also can be safe, but also can be unsafe. And this is about building responsibility. The things that I'm responsible for is I'm not allowed to get angry. If they come to me with something, or if I see, so I'm allowed to check their phones, any of their tech at any time. I've got all their passcodes. I can come up and say, I need to do a check. I've done it maybe 3 times, but they know that that's part of that's the deal.
Yeah.
And I give them the option. Like I did it with my 15-year-old son. I was like, is there anything, I'm gonna go to the toilet. But is there anything that is on there that I may not want to see? And his face sort of told me there was. So I said, I'm just gonna go to the toilet. I'm gonna come back and you're gonna hand it over. You know what it was? Log pics. Apparently that's a thing. They take photos of their poos in a group chat. It's a thing.
Yeah, like the school put on a digital information.
Yeah.
That was the one piece of information I took away is don't ever get angry at them when they bring something to you because they'll never bring it.
Yeah, they'll never bring it. Yeah. So as a result, and I think that is, and that's why I don't have equal rules, but there's things that I have to uphold. That I say to kids, what do you want from me?
Yeah.
What's going to help you feel safe around tech as well? Because it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
So asking them, but yeah, it really depends on your kid. But I would be focusing more on what do you notice in your body? I'm noticing, and then use your, do that co-regulation, shorts, check it, and then over time, hey, I notice. Over time, they will then notice in their body.
Yeah, it's coming. Like this happened last night. I canned and I was like, done too much. And this morning she woke up and I was like, no TV.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not punishing you. I said, but I can tell that you feel yucky when you have too much.
Yeah.
And this afternoon she came home and she goes, yeah, I felt better today. And I'm like,
Yeah. And that's what we want to do is build that awareness for our kids, right? We'll have much better. Less work for us.
It's just a fine line between not, because I don't want her to feel like she's missing out on being punished.
Yeah.
But also.
Yeah, but it's about limits.
Yeah.
And I think with tech, it's really easy for us, but for kids to go over those limits.
Yeah.
It's tricky.
I have a question
Yes.
about tech.
Yes.
Anxieties around things that you can't really prepare them for. Or,
Yep.
So, for example, my son's, and who's still is very across this, is terrified of there being a school lockdown. He
Yep.
refuses to go number 2s at school because
Yep.
he's terrified it will happen when he's in the bathroom.
In the bathroom. Yep.
He's
Yep.
scared of fire drills.
Yep.
He's scared of all of these things. It has never been affected by it.
Yep.
But is really scared of them and has like panicking moments
Yes.
on the way to school, sometimes thinking it might happen today.
Yes.
So how do you prepare them for things they can't actually control but need to know?
Yep. So anxiety, it's a nervous system dysregulation. It's often contagious as well. So I know when I work with kids where there's anxiety, there's often anxiety within the house. So this is my best tip for anxiety. I mean, I could talk for ages, but my top tip, I've got an anxious 12-year-old, who is frightened of everything. And so we named her amygdala. So we learned about the brain, learned about her amygdala, and then we named it. And sorry, Karen, she called it Karen. But are you guys familiar with Karen Young's work? So Karen Young is a psychologist. She does amazing. She's got beautiful free resources. Hey Sigmund is her website. There's amazing free resources on there. She has lots of talks, but she specialises in anxiety in particular, and she's got a beautiful book called Hey Brain, and it comes with a plushie amygdala, and she's actually got one on the nervous system. Yeah, dear brain. And then there's another one on the nervous system, so you can actually use it and your kids are perfect age. So we named her amygdala Karen, and from the book though, and I had to then externally regulate with her because she would just loop, right, as anxiety does, and I would say, hey, do we need to check Karen? Is this Karen talking? So bringing that, externalizing it, because she always felt so bad. So we would externalize it. It's your amygdala going a little bit crazy. Do we need to just calm Karen down? So we used lots of scripts and reinforcement, and that worked a treat for her. So all of that, like, next level, she still gets anxiety, but that next level, unrealistic, like, crazy stuff has gone. So if she ever saw someone walking down the street dressed in all black, she would scream and go, "There's a kidnapper." I'd be like,
Yeah, that's exactly what's happened.
Yeah.
You got taught about
Safety.
Daniel Walcombe situation.
Uh-huh,
and then
yeah.
it's not like, would not go to the bathroom for
Yeah,
because
yeah.
there's a kidnapper in there.
Yeah. So check out Karen's. She's got beautiful books, lots of amazing resources, lots of on socials. She's got some really great stuff for parents. So check her out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yes. No, thank you. Sorry, I'm you. I did warn you. I'm a young. Any other?
You could be here soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
As a boy mum, how do I get him, and maybe this might help my husband too,
Yeah.
to talk about his feelings? So,
Yeah.
like, he'll just stare at me blankly, like, if some of the things you were saying, like, check in, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
He'll just go, I don't know.
I don't know.
Like,
Yeah.
that makes me a little triggered.
Totally. Totally. As a
Like,
boy mum, totally. Yeah.
Just tell me how you feel and I
Yeah.
can fix it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all I wanna do.
I start with the commentary method. And so, how old is he?
I have 7 and 8.
7 and 8. Okay, that's fine. You do this on husbands too. And I notice that you look a little bit frustrated today. I'm noticing that so the commentary method is you're commentating and noticing, and just start your noticing. Your sentence is, hey, I'm noticing, or I noticed just then in that argument with your brother or whatever. I noticed when you came home from school that you looked like you might have had a rough day, and I noticed that you might have been a bit sad. You can get those beautiful emotion wheels as well, so you can sort of talk through those. It's really around explicit teaching with kids, emotions. Also, how is it modelled in the home, right? So you can use that. How do you and your husband talk about emotions? Is that done naturally, freely? Is it something that you guys can do as a family as well?
So I'm trying to talk about mine.
Yeah.
I notice like that mum comes out and you restart feeling like this is a lecture. Like you
Yeah,
you
the
doesn't
husband's
care,
got to
she's
tune out.
not
Yeah,
stopping.
yeah, because they think, yeah. Yeah, good luck. No. Persistence. I think starting small, and I realise with my husband, you got to have, this is where you drop the bar, you lower the bar, and start small and then raise the bar. But it's, I find the naming first is helpful, as a good place to start. I'm going to flip to any other boy mums or actually other parents, because girls also struggle, although girls are just so much more emotional, like they're so much more emotionally in tune.
And like in the morning, they want to come for a cuddle, and then it turns into a nightmare trying to get them back out of bed. And so I used to get so frustrated, and then now I say, this is actually making me really stressed first thing in the morning. And I go, I really appreciate, like, you know, whatever. And I name it.
Naming it, yeah.
And then it kind of disarms, and they go, oh, okay, I don't want to make you stressed.
Yeah.
And then we're up and out.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. It's specific. How old's your kid?
9 and 11.
9, 11. Yes. So it is repetition, a lot of time.
Am I telling them, like, because I do that as well?
Yeah.
But then I'm like, am I guilt tripping you? Like, you can't make me stressed.
No. You're just saying I'm feeling stressed, right? You're not saying you're making me feel stressed, but saying I'm feeling a little bit stressed. I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed. So if you can use as much as what we've been talking about in terms of that language, my nervous system, using things like engine plates, the more you use that and build awareness and it becomes normal in your household, they will use it more. They'll just pick it up, just like swearing. You know, everything that we model in houses, our kids will pick up. Yeah. Right, get out of here. Thank you, everybody.
No, thank
I'll
you.
figure out and talk to Karen after.